This is E&P Reports, a vodcast from Editor and Publisher magazine, the authoritative voice of news media since 1884, serving newspapers, broadcast, digital, and all forms of news publishing.
And warm greetings once again. I'm Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine. As always, we kick off the program by urging those that are listening on a podcast platform to please follow, those watching on our YouTube channel, subscribe. Either way, when you do that, you should get an update each and every time we upload this weekly vodcast series we call E&P Reports. I got a new guest, Katie Sanders. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for inviting me on.
It's my honor. We have a new tradition here at E&P Reports. Not new, we've been doing it for a few months now because for some reason, every other story we report on has something to do with AI, Katie. We no longer go and troll you on your LinkedIn profile or whatever you have up on your PolitiFact page. We go to the horse's mouth. We go to ChatGPT and ask it to describe our guest. We then bounce it off of you. We tell you what it says about you, and you tell us if it got you right. So this is your profile according to my ChatGPT. Are you ready? Here we go.
Let's hear it. Let's get it over with. Yeah.
You are editor-in-chief of PolitiFact, a Pulitzer Prize-winning fact-checking organization under the Poynter Institute for Media Studies. You have been with PolitiFact since 2011, serving in various roles including Florida staff reporter, deputy editor, and managing editor before becoming editor-in-chief, and that was in November 2023. Throughout your tenure, you've overseen PolitiFact's nonprofit newsroom, been instrumental in its fact-checking initiatives. You regularly teach fact-checking techniques to journalists, social media influencers, and students globally. And you are also the president of the Florida Society of Newspaper Editors. How did it do it for you on a scale of A to F? Is that pretty much you?
That sounds like my PolitiFact profile. So I think ChatGPT is doing some good trolling of the web. That would be spot on.
It found you and exposed you. Well, we're honored to have you on, and the reason we brought you in is the recent announcement that Meta made. Well, its decision to end its third-party fact-checking effective now, January of 2025. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, is it? I'm not even sure if it's in place yet or will be by the end of the month. And then those that have not followed the story, the company plans, and you're going to have to really update me because I'm sure you're on top of this. It's going to be using community-driven content moderation similar to X's community notes. Do I have that right?
I think you have it mostly right. We're under the impression that there was no off switch with the program. And so we're still able to access the same technology on the back end to see what's going viral on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. And we're still fact checking as part of the program. We haven't been told to stop, but we do expect it will go away in a couple months, and in favor of that community notes model that they've described, where it's more crowdsourced and context added, I guess.
Well, as the editor-in-chief of PolitiFact, we want to get you to give us some views on that, and we're going to have you unpack all of that on the backside of this message.
This episode of E&P Reports is exclusively sponsored by Blocks Digital, formerly Town News. Even though the name has changed, their commitment to the media industry is as strong as ever. Blocks Digital is now even better positioned to deliver integrated solutions like content management, audience development, advertising revenue, video management, and more. Join the over 2,000 news publishers worldwide that power their ongoing digital transformation with Blocks Digital, serving over 141 million monthly users who view over 6.5 billion pages of content each year. You can trust Blocks Digital to empower you, to connect you at scale with the community you need to reach. Blocks Digital, formerly Town News, now reimagined to help meet the news publishing challenges of tomorrow and beyond. Learn more at blocksdigital.com.
All right, Katie, right out of the box, what do you think the immediate implications are for Meta's decision on social media in general?
Well, we're still in the early stages of processing this news, but I think that the Facebook, Instagram, Threads platforms are just going to attract some junkier content than people are probably used to seeing. And I think people are going to fall for junkier content, scams, clickbaity headline that have, for the last 8 years come with warning labels that this is false. Um, One thing I've been reflecting on is that if you were to just hear the messages from Meta this week, your impression of the program is that it went after pure political speech, political opinions, conservative politicians and pundits pretty exclusively. And that is not the case of our everyday experience. To be called biased, to be called censors, is just not how the program works. We covered all the flavors of what's online. So that included a lot of news events, but it also included a lot of claims about public health that could be quite harmful if they were to be believed and taken at face value. A lot of consumer work. We did a lot of consumer work. So identifying scams that leverage AI technology, AI graphic technology. We called those out. And we and 9 other American fact checkers were the ones doing that work, and it's very hands-on. But we made those calls independently of Meta because that's what we were asked to do, to use our news judgment as professional journalists. So not a lot of fun seeing those efforts, be denigrated. But it really ran the gamut, and when we look at what our everyday work on the tool was, it was quite varied. And it was really in the interest of helping people not fall for hoaxes and other false claims.
Well, that brings up the question. Treat me like I'm a 3-year-old because I don't understand what X's community notes is all about. Can that replace professional fact checking? I mean, they weren't blowing a lot of money on this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I read it was only $5 million a year to maintain that. And isn't that like just a rounding error? I mean, for the kind of money that Meta brings in. But what is X's community notes, or at least that model, and can that, in your opinion, replace fact checking?
No, it's going to look a lot different if that's the
Okay.
model they're going for. And, I think one thing I'll say right away is that we wish that we could have been in talks with Meta about blending a community notes style approach with the in-depth fact checking that we did, just to explain it at a very basic level, the difference. Our work on the fact checking program these last 8 years has been to, research and investigate and provide conclusions with fully transparent sourcing about viral claims. And we prioritized false, out of context, like the bad stuff that's going on online, right? Community notes, as it works on X, is different. I think one of the major findings from organizations like Poynter and other groups has been that the community notes just end up being attached to a fraction of false and misleading claims. And so the scale is really tough. That's one thing. The second thing is that the way a community note is kind of approved, kind of makes it to the publishing process, requires consensus from users of both sides of the political aisle. And this is where it gets kind of hazy for me because it's very hard for people who are partisan to see things in the same light. So that's another reason why there aren't a lot of community notes. It's because it's hard to find a lot of agreement
All
on
right.
what the facts are.
I mean,
So it's not going to, it will be fast. It has the potential to, because it's so simple, you could just throw a link with 2 sentences on it. It
right.
could be really fast if it's done well. And that's something that's always kind of held back in-depth fact checking, is that it takes more time, a day or two. But I think people may miss the thoroughness that we had to offer.
There's always been a relationship between Facebook or Meta and the news publishing industry, and it's gone up and down and in and out, especially with and we're not going to dive into compensation and all the other things that we report on, but now that this is going to be in place, what is that relationship like, at least in your opinion? You're talking to a news publishing audience now. Does it signal further disinvestment in them supporting credible journalism? Do we need to step in and fill the gap? I mean, you've got the megaphone. You're running one of the top fact checking brands in the world. What do you say to this audience about this and our job? Should we back off like it sounds like some of the billionaires in our industry are doing? That was my comment, not our reporting. Where are you at on this?
We do not have plans to retreat. We think covering online discourse is it's a brave exercise, but it's an important and it's a highly relevant exercise for journalists, period, not just our reporters at PolitiFact and other groups. Reporters and journalists need to pay attention to how influencers are talking about the news on, of various political stripes. They need to pay attention to how regular users are talking about the news and major events, and be forceful agents for the truth and countering false information. I mean, I'm in Florida,
Right.
and I'm watching these fires happen on the West Coast, and it's reminding me so much of the fear and the panic and the grief that swells after a natural disaster like a hurricane, right? And from PolitiFact's perspective, when these natural disasters or disasters period sweep through our country, we're used to seeing really unhelpful, inaccurate discourse pop up. Misinformation follows these major news events. And we have had a megaphone in saying this conspiracy theory about how the storm started isn't true. This conspiracy theory about relief workers confiscating supplies isn't true. But when people see these claims, it creates chaos, it creates harm. And it certainly breeds a lot of distrust at a time when people need clear information, clear direction.
We at ENP do not believe, and now I'm editorializing, but I'm the publisher, so I can do whatever the hell I want, right? Okay. We do not believe that fact checking suppresses freedom of speech, although there are people that scream that, loud. We believe that fact checking is necessary in order to shine that spotlight, be that, that final check on power in a Madisonian republic, duh, because we're editor and publisher. What can we do to support you? I mean, you got an audience of news publishers. Do you need more of us to point to you? Do you need more of us to ring your bell? How can we help make sure that the truth is out there in one of the top accessed news media? Okay, I'm not going to use the word news, media brands in the world.
What a question. Thank you for asking that.
It's my pleasure. Go ahead. You got the
I
mic.
agree with your hot take. Fact checking is not censorship. Fact checking gives people information so they can decide. And that's what we've always been about from the beginning, is adding context, providing more sources, vetted sources. And I love how you opened your question by saying it's not censorship. And I just think more news publishers should be talking about that. Holding people to account is not censorship. We should not be running away from people who are insulting our work, who are. I don't think this is a moment where we need to dial back, our approach, our strategy. I mean, we should listen to our readers, and we do, but I don't think fact checking is a fad, and I don't agree with the the pushback that has turned it almost into a dirty word. So I think being specific about what fact checking really does for the industry and how it actually helps journalists figure out what's going on and help them parse the spin of what they're hearing from leaders down the ranks of the national, state, local level. I would just love more conversation about the value that brings.
I'm going to ask a question that I may edit out because it's going in a different direction.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask it anyway because I'm a curious guy. I had Rex Humpke on this program. Are you familiar? USA columnist now, USA Today columnist, who leans left and in a way almost fact checks in his columns. He's had death threats. He told me that on this very program. There's people. Do you have that problem when you hire? Do you have problems at PolitiFact with your team feeling not nervous, being out in a very polarized political environment now?
Yes, this work does come at a cost. I think our reporters do feel supported because we're aware of what the blowback that they receive about articles and corrections that have their bylines on it. We talk about it a lot. We educate our reporters when they start with us about how to defensively prepare and lock down their profiles so that they aren't inadvertently providing fodder for critics or worse to use against them. We're very defensive and we're very prepared at PolitiFact, and we do get a lot of hate. And I would say the women, the minorities in our team probably get it the most, but everybody gets it from time to time. So I think the important thing for our team, we know this, is that we support each other. We don't hide when we're feeling under the gun. We rush to each other to offer support. I think the level of support we offer is where more newsrooms, not just fact-checking newsrooms, need to go. I think because we talk a lot about like threats that we get on X or in our email inboxes, we have plans in place for what to do if those threats escalate. How do you report it? What are the different policies on our platforms? Like, our staff is fluent on that, so they feel, and I think that preparedness makes their job better, not easier, but knowing what to do when the inevitable happens is an essential part of this work.
Someone wants to learn more about PolitiFact. You have your own site, correct? Can they reach out to you personally and offer support or ask for more information? How do we learn more about PolitiFact?
I would welcome that. Our website's politifact.com. And if you haven't read our process page before, it is it's a very transparent document about how we decide what to check, how our process that is tried and true for every fact check we do, that we follow, our reporting process, why we show our sources, how we're funded. It's really a model of transparency for news organizations, period. So I'm very proud of it, and it needs an update to account for the big news of this week. But that's always been really important to us, is that we have answers prepared that explain, honestly, a lot of points of criticism that you'll hear about PolitiFact this week or in the past. People can reach out to me directly. I'd love to hear from you. K Sanders, KSANDERS @politifact.com. Encouragement welcome, but so is criticism. So are new ideas, please. I can handle it.
And I wanted to say, for those that are listening on a Spotify or Apple, by all means, come down to our actual landing page for this episode at editorandpublisher.com/vodcast. We'll make sure there's a link there to that paper. Katie Sanders, editor-in-chief of PolitiFact. I know you are extremely busy right now, and for you to carve out this time for our audience is most welcome. Thank you so much.
Your audience is really important, so thank you for offering to have this conversation.